we're going to turn to your book now. We had a little bit of a struggle. We did try relational skills with our couples. This one was a bit harder. This one did not quite land as well. Um, but the little books landed a little bit better. So we're right now in the 30 Days of Joy.
It's more like 30 months.
But we're on month 3. There is no way on God's green earth we could do one of these every single day. So NeuroDiverse Couples, if you get this, modify it. We're gonna
Right. That's right. Modify it is good.
So with 30 Days of Joy, what I want to start out with is one of the things we're usually saying is how usually traditional marriage advice doesn't really work for our neurodiverse couples. And so before we even go into the book, I'm going to ask you about weaponizing joy, because so our couples usually have trauma A. And so if you're a new listener, trauma A is A for absent. It's like rejection, abandonment, neglect. It's the absence of the good things that we need. And trauma B is the bad things, psychological, emotional, physical, sexual abuse. All right. So a lot of our couples are coming to us like it's heavy trauma A. There's a lot of neglect and dismissing and avoidance and bad cycles. So they've gone to pastors or Christian counselors, and like this, they must teach this in pastor school. I don't know, is like pray more, go on more dates, and have more sex. Like that's the top 3 things. And then go out and do that for 30 days and kind of come back and tell us how it's going. But if you're if I don't even think you have Hesed for me, and I'm kind of fearful about being around you, building joy is going to be really hard. And then like, let's draw a line in the sand. Let's just forget about our bad 20 years of bad marriage. And let's just start today and build joy. That's how some people misinterpret some of the things that you've said. So I wanted to kind of let you talk about that is not what you're saying, and kind of what you need to build joy. And then how can you weaponize joy?
Yeah. So, as far as your brain is concerned, joy is when someone's glad to be with you. They're glad that it's you. I'm glad that you walked into the room, and we feel that glad to be togetherness. And it's, while joy can be a high energy response, it can also be that settled, like Jen and I are reading a book, right? She's reading her book, I'm reading my book, but we're both sitting on the couch. Joy is, I'm glad that Jen's here, even though she's doing her thing and I'm doing my thing. And every now and then we might look up and look at each other and just check on the other and then go back to our book. So, our brain likes it when someone's glad that we're here. And we don't like it when someone's not glad that we're here. Like, we feel that difference in our gut often. It's like, we like it when our friends and our family members are glad that we're here. And trying to force joy doesn't work too well. Because joy is more like a reflex. It's like, I see Jen come and sit on the couch, and joy would be, oh, I'm glad she's here. Right? That is more like a response, just because of she sat down and I see that it's her, and I'm glad that she's here. Now, if we're in a conflict and we're both kind of locked in enemy mode, that's going to be really hard to grow some joy right there, because neither one of us are in a relational space. So sometimes we need some quieting rather than joy. So I might not be able to build joy right now because we're both hurting and we're both sad, or we're both just really struggling to be online. Let's just take some breathers here. Let's just sit here and quiet. And often the quiet is actually what can help us get to a point of being able to build some joy, but forcing it doesn't work well. And that's where this glad to be togetherness can become weaponized, because I've now learned joy is like, it's good, it's life-giving, it's what I need. So I want Jen to come over here and build some joy with me. And she might be in a moment where she's busy or distracted. And I say, Jen, I want to build some joy with you. Come over here and build some joy with me. How's that going to feel for you if I try to force some joy?
I mean, if I'm in the middle of something, I might feel a little irritated that you're not respecting that I'm in the middle of something and that you want me here right this second. But if I'm hurt by something you did, I'm going to be even more irritated. Like, you want me to come be glad to be with you when you've hurt me in this way? Why would I be glad to be with you right now when I'm feeling hurt by you? So that, I think that's also part of what you're talking about there, is when there's hurt and pain between you, the I'm glad that you're here is not the first natural thing. Being able to quiet together is going to be a much easier thing to be able to find together, because we still do need, and that's the tension, right? Like, when there's pain, sometimes we don't have what we need to be able to face the pain and find peace without building a little bit of capacity or joy. And maybe it has to be with a friend outside of our bond, or maybe we can still find something that makes us smile together. But it's hard. It's just, when there's pain there, it makes it much harder.
And it helps to have this lens, because joy is a good thing, just like rain is a good thing. But when you've had a lot of rain and flooding, you don't want any more rain. And so in a sense, with joy, when we're trying to force it, what it does is it ends up putting our brain in enemy mode. And in enemy mode, I don't want to interact. I want to be left alone. I'd rather be on my phone. I'm not in a relational space for joy. So, the goal is actually, I might give Jen an invitation. I might say, hey, I'd love a few minutes just to spend some time with you before we go to bed. I haven't gotten to really connect with you in a while. Could we have, just a few minutes to sit? Maybe we'll just sit and we'll rest. Maybe we'll try a little bit of joy, a little bit of eye contact, or maybe some stories of joy or some highlights of joy from our day, something to connect. But I always tell people, when we try to force joy, it backfires. And we want to be tender, part of, especially in marriages, we want to be tender with each other. Even though I might want joy, Jen might not be there. She might not be ready for joy. Or even though she might want some joy, I might say, hey, I'm not ready for connecting, but I'd love to just sit and rest for a few minutes, and then let's try it. Or maybe we're interacting, and one of us, kind of slips into enemy mode over something. We might say, hey, let's just take a moment and pause and quiet. And so really, quiet is the back door to joy. When we quiet, when we rest, that actually primes us for joy. But trying to force joy, especially when we need to rest, it's not going to go well. And often, you might see this with couples where someone learns about joy and they say, hey, the problem in our marriage is, you're not building joy, or we're not building joy. We've got to build some joy here. And they might not just be in the space to build some joy, or maybe they need that third face. Maybe they need that therapist or that counselor or that mentor, whoever that might be. Maybe they need that third face who could come and help to neutralize some of the dynamics, try to build a little joy, do some quiet together. And this is where that return to joy skill comes in. So ideally, as we've practiced some joy, that's that home base, joy and rest, then emotions are when I've lost my joy for some reason. So I've gotten angry, or I've gotten depressed and sad, or I've gotten disgusted over something. This is where the skill, our brain can practice learning that skill of, now, how do I feel my sadness or my anger and get back to glad to be together joy? And that's the part of practice. So the way that we help people learn that skill is we take a lot of time on helping them do those kinds of exercises in the books there to create a foundation of joy and rest. And so we have to get really good at joy and rest before we really start to master that return to joy skill. Because returning to joy is just getting back to my home base of rest and joy. And then whenever we have big emotions come in, okay, how do we get back to joy and peace here? So joy gets weaponized in the way that, in a sense, it can become a toxic motivator, where I will, try to force it in some way, or I'll try to guilt my partner and say, hey, you're not glad to be with me. What's wrong with you? Like, you're supposed to be glad to be with me. Well, that's just going to, reinforce enemy mode, which is going to be really hard to to navigate. So I'd say for a lot of couples, don't force joy. We should never force joy, but try practicing some resting and some quieting. Get really good at the quieting, get really good at the resting, practice some appreciation. Appreciation is when we remember joy. So I might say, tell me one of your favorite, joyful moments or a special memory that was really special and meaningful for you. Like, tell me that story. So when we remember the good stuff, that actually primes us to start to, get the flames of joy started in the present. So I have a lot of couples that might wrestle or struggle to start to practice joy. Lots of quieting. Let's practice gratitude and appreciation, and let's actively share stories of special moments or special memories. And for Jen and I, when we were writing that 30 Days of Joy book, we knew we had to practice the exercises before we released the book. And we were in a time crunch, and we were like, wow, we only had a couple weeks before this thing was supposed to be done. So we went through all the exercises in 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, and very short amount of time. But it surprised me how fun it was, because I went into it like, how are we going to do this? I don't know if this is going to work. This is such a tight timeline.
You went into it like a chore.
Yes, it felt like a chore. Yeah.
The little narratives are that way. Like, we knew we didn't need to do it, but we had to do it. We had 30 minutes.
And it did, honestly. At times, it would be in the evening. I'm tired. I'm tired, and I'm, ready to rest. And Jen would say, hey, we've got to do our exercise. And I was like, really? I don't know. I'm tired. I don't know if I want to do this tonight. She was like, well, let's try it. Let's try it for, 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And we would do what, the exercise. And afterwards, I was back into my relational, glad to be together self. I was like, why was I resistant to doing this? Going into it, I didn't want to do it. But when I did it, I noticed, wow, it actually charged me, surprisingly. But I really want couples to know, we kind of came up with a design for the exercises, but that is all easily adjustable. I tell couples, adjust the exercises, tailor it for what works for you. Just because we set it up a certain way to take 5 minutes here or 10 minutes here, it's more about quality than quantity. And that's really what, is the exercises are about, is to get some connection. And it's about quality of connection, more than it is about doing the exact directions as we put them in there.
Yeah. So like the joy smiles, we'll start with that one. Eye contact can be difficult for neurodivergent folks. And so I want to say this because someone challenged me on it the other day. If you're trying to teach people on the spectrum to have eye contact, then you're being an ableist or neurotypical, or trying to neurotypicalize them. And so I'm going to push back on that and say, there's a lot of times we have to learn skills, and eye contact is a relational skill. And yes, it is uncomfortable. And yes, you need to be respectful, because eye contact can be overwhelming. And then if you're being overwhelmed by your partner, then that's not joy building, right? So as we kind of started experimenting with that, because there's sometimes in the book, it'll say, try it in quiet, or pick your favorite song, or sit knee to knee or head to head. And so you're trying to figure out what is comfortable for you both. So the very first time we did try the 5 minutes, he turned it into a staring contest. And I was like, I feel like you're staring into my soul. So that feels very intimidating and not very joyful.
I think it says don't.
Right. Well, it said try not to blink, but it does say look away. It says look away when you know you're feeling overwhelmed, but a literal person is trying not to blink for 5 minutes. So we found if we backed it up to we started with 15 seconds.
30, I think.
So we went to 30 seconds and then started kind of building in 15-second intervals. And I think we felt like the music helped, the awkward silence, that was helpful. So that might be different for other people. And so that was kind of one of our modifications, was take it to seconds instead of minutes, and then figure out, lighting and all that stuff that you got to do. And then the second one is the heart to heart hold. which 5 minutes might be too long for touch and sensory things. So, figuring that out, maybe starting at 30 seconds or a minute and kind of building that up.
And then making sure one person can see the clock.
Oh, I have to watch the clock, yes, because I don't like being still. So I'm watching the clock so as it's ticking down. And you can move it to, like, for some of my couples that are moving into working on more sensual touch, you can start clothed and learn to start removing such as you're doing heart to heart. So you modify it to kind of what you're looking for. And another thing about the book that I think is important is when you're building joy, there's some vulnerability in here. Like if you're going to do charades and act something out, you're going to be a little silly acting. And so I think silliness is a part of vulnerability. And you've got to know, like, right now we're not stuck, but we haven't done number 23 because it's tell a nonverbal story about how you failed to respond tenderly to your spouse. And we want to both be in the right frame of mind to do that one. Like Chris Jen, we're going to wait on that one. I'm going to go back there and revisit that right now.
You can skip it. You can always come back to it another time. That's all right. Yeah. And I love what you said, like adjusting it and, find what works. That's what I really want couples to know. Find what works, adjust it, tweak it accordingly, because it's more important that you practice what works for you and where you and your spouse are at, and don't force it. Like have some fun, but adjust it for what works. That is a more of a life-giving approach.
Well, and I'll add that even with the joy smiles, without blinking, we do expect, like, the looking away is an important part of it, because it is a lot to look at somebody for that long, even for other people. I mean, for people who don't have neurodiverse marriages. And so it's okay. It doesn't have to be like you failed. You didn't look at each other for the whole amount of time. It's that rhythm of joy and resting together, and joy and resting together is a good rhythm.
And it is. And I find, when Jen and I do this, I gravitate more toward the rest because I'm a low energy responder. I'm a low energy person. So I gravitate toward the resting, and the connecting's good. And I love, looking at my wife, but I will gravitate toward the rest, whereas she would gravitate more toward the connecting. So part of it is me learning what I need, as well as learning to monitor what it looks like she needs. So if she wants to connect, but I like, wow, I'm getting overwhelmed, I'm going to look away. Or if I see her looking away a lot, I'm going to look away, even though I might want more connection. So part of it is that rhythm that Jen's talking about. Like the beauty of that practice is you're going to learn a lot. And as you practice different rounds or different versions of the exercises, it starts getting a little more familiar over time. At first, it's like, what are we doing and why are we doing this? But with a little bit of practice, it pays off, because you start learning more about yourself. You start noticing things, and it helps to talk about it afterwards. Like when Jen and I would do the exercises, it was helpful to hear her experience, because what my experience often was much different than her experience. So it really was helpful just in our relationship to talk about that and kind of learn about each other a little more.
It helps with that mindset part too.
Yeah, true.
Understanding what's going on in my partner and how it might be different than what's going on in me, or what I think is going on in him.
And for her, if I'm looking away a lot, it's not like she's doing anything wrong. It's like, no, this is what I need. Like, you're not doing anything wrong. I just noticed I'm tired. And I notice when I'm tired, I crave more rest. So those kinds of conversations really are where the gold is, because you start to learn a lot about each other and yourselves, and you really do understand more about your partner's mind.
Yeah. And when talking to Dr. Wilder about this, he said the autistic brain can build new paths of joy. It's a little bit rigid. It's going to take a little bit harder of time. That's going to take more intentional practice over a long period of time. But those neural networks can be laid. And sometimes my autistic clients are like, you're just trying to change me. And I was like, well, being a more joyful person should be the amplification of the best you. It's not going to make someone less autistic. It's going to make these practices help you more relational and help you with your joyful self. And another email I have with Dr. Wilder, he said, for some of my autistic clients, he said, until you've had a taste and see, until you've done it and see the results, you might be resistant to it. Again, it's change. The autistic brain does not like change. So you're going to have to practice it and kind of taste and see that there are good benefits from it and that you didn't change. It didn't change your whole personality, but the different cycle, the different relationship you're going to have with your wife. And so it may take a little bit longer because there's a lot of resistance, to new things with our couples in general. But this, because it does feel like there's been such the misconception about just choose joy and put on your happy face and be happy and don't be the real you kind of thing. Talking about joy is like, oh, they're just trying to change me. They want me to mask more. They don't really want me to be myself. So I want to kind of talk through some of these. So this is my interpretation, and you tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like joy starts here is if you really want to geek out on all the neuroscience. This is the big thick book. And this is like starts everything. This is where trauma A, trauma B, there's lots of definitions. It's a collaboration of 4 authors, which Ed Corey was on the same month as well, talking about the faith of grace. So this one's like if you want all the meat and all the neuroscience. But if that's not quite your thing and you want to cut more to the joy, just the joy part of your brain and how to start working with it, I think the joy switch kind of gets you there a little bit quicker. And then I don't have my other 2 books, but the 4 Habits of a Joy-Filled Person. So maybe your spouse doesn't want to try this stuff yet. Maybe they're like, I'm not into it. I'm not buying it. I'm not doing it. You can get the Habits of a Joy-Filled Person or Joy-Filled People and do your own stuff. Start growing your own brain, your own neural circuits, your own peace and quieting. You do have one for married couples too. It's a small book. I think it's the green one for children.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
parenting
right.
kids. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then relational skills in the Bible. We tried this as a group, but I have a feeling with some more neurotypical people, it might go better in a small group. That this one didn't quite land for us. And then the 30 Days of Joy. This is kind of like a practical guideline. But like we said, we started like the first week of December. We're several months into this new year, and we're still kind of just choosing 1 or 2 a week. And then sometimes we're just too daggum tired to do anything. So we just have these conversations and say, you got it today? No, I can't do it today. But we're plugging through. We are plugging through.
And it's good because you're not forcing it. I love that. Like ultimately, we want this to be fun, not a chore. And I love that you give yourselves permission. Like, you know what? I don't have it in me tonight. Let's try tomorrow, or let's try another day. Like that's really what I think is the way to go. Like, if you force it, it loses some of the fun and the value. Whereas like, hey, I've got 5 minutes. Let's try one of these, part of this exercise in 5 minutes. And let's just see how that goes. Like playing around with it. There's just lots of freedom there. And that's really where the good stuff starts to grow.
Well, as we kind of wrap up today, will you talk to us about Thrive Today? Because I know y'all have some online courses and y'all do like training for people and all of that. So will you kind of wrap this up today with what y'all do in your ministry?
All right. You want to share a little bit there?
Sure. So what we've been talking about a lot are relational skills. We've been talking about capacity building skills, joy, appreciation, quieting. We've been talking about recovery skills like return to joy. There's actually 19 skills that we train through our ministry. Those are just a few of them. Yep. The relational skills in the Bible goes into all 19 of them, touches on all of them. And we have a 5-day training that people come to kind of dive in the deep end. And we also have more bite-sized pieces in online courses with practice. They're actually practice online courses. So there's just a little bit of teaching with walking you through steps of practices for some of the different skills like joy and recognizing relational mode, and when I'm in relational mode, when I've fallen out of relational mode, and what I can do about that, or quieting and appreciation. And we are just now launching our first Return to Joy course where people can actually practice noticing the emotions and that feel, share, quiet process that Chris has been talking about in processing our emotions and getting through them. So those are just a handful of some of the resources, but we like to call ourselves the practice people because we like to not just teach it, but really get into the nitty gritty of the practice. Cause that, at least for us, has been what has been the most transformative in our marriage, in our individual lives, in our family, all of those things. The actual doing it part has just been so impactful that that's what we want to spread to other people.
Is that thrivetoday.com?
Yep.
Thrivetoday.org, actually.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's it.
All right. Anything you want to say as we're ending, closing, whatever we're doing?
I'm out of words.
You're out of words already? Okay. He's ready for some quieting. We're going to be ready for some quieting. And our pastors always remind us practice makes person. So it is the practice. Reading is only going to stick it in your left brain. You're going to have to practice it and do it to build the relational skill. So thank you guys for being on our show today. And thank you listeners for listening to us and kind of rounding out this month where we've really been focusing on relational circuits and fear bonds and joy bonds and grace and outsmarting yourself. That's all the things that we've talked about this month. So it always reminds you that there is hope for your future and you're not alone on this journey.
You didn't let me say it.
You usually forget. So I just jumped right on in there and did it. Bye, everyone.